Angels from heaven. They are real. Often depicted in art and film as space whales or even space brains, as they're often described as beings of light, people believe that heavenly angels are intelligent balls of plasma floating through the cosmos. Many have theorized that people were well aware of this phenomenon in the Renaissance period, as several paintings from the medieval to Renaissance era depict angelic imagery, suggesting artists understood these angelic beings better than we do today. During the 1940s, several pilots and aircrew reported seeing balls of light dancing around their aircraft while flying over the English Channel and Western Europe. The American Air Force would usually see these entities appearing around their flying fortresses as they would approach their targets in France and Germany, bobbing in and out of view, following along with their large aircraft formations as if these balls of light were aliens observing human activity during world conflict. This phenomenon was known as Foo Fighters, and to this day, there has never been a good explanation as to what was happening back then. So, is that what Foo Fighters were? Did angels come back to Earth from heaven during a time of world conflict in the beginning of the nuclear age to witness humanity's most gruesome war? Are Foo Fighters intelligent balls of plasma from outer space? No. No, you f***ing idiot. Obviously not. I am the skeptic, for Christ's sake. I have an answer for everything. I mean, a joke answer for the fictional history film that I'm making? Yeah, I mean, aliens are real. Just have fun with this, please. I started thinking about the Foo Fighter riddle a few weeks back, and when trying to piece it together, I found a lot of strange correlations between technologies that were being tested back then by both the Axis and Allied militaries, and the bizarre cults and religions that the elites were practicing back in the 1940s. It's not all perfectly connected to the UFOs, but the story that they all tell together is 1,000 times more interesting than the Foo Fighters themselves. I've covered several UFO stories on this channel over the years, debunked a good fair few of them, and I damn near almost included the Foo Fighters in my Tell Me More series. But I'm really happy that I didn't, because this is very different from all of those stories. The Germans were accused of communicating with interdimensional beings or aliens or something, using the priestesses from the Vril Society as mediums. Theories like that have flown around for a really long time, that these beings were the ones that taught the Germans how to build technology like UFOs, like radar. Now, if you've been paying attention, you know that I do not believe in aliens. I don't believe that that stuff is true. And I didn't want to believe that this story had to have a supernatural explanation. So far, not a single story I've covered on this channel has needed one. I feel like everything that I've learned from Sir Isaac Newton and Tesla for this series is all that I need to answer this riddle. I know this is probably not the best place to debut yet another one of my crazy scientific theories. Clearly, I sound like a lunatic describing this shit. Look, you guys are like the only people I even really know, so this is what you have to deal with today, okay? But before we get to that, a word from our sponsor, Raycon. I'm always listening to music, whether I'm walking through the snow to get gas station burgers, or I'm just sitting under a tree to have a real big think. I gotta have my Raycons. So whether you're looking for noise isolating everyday earbuds, low latency gaming headphones, or even a speaker that'll keep your guests up all night dancing, Raycon's got you covered. And Raycons are super easy to use. Once you got them paired to your device, all you gotta do is take them out of the charging case, stick them in your ear, and you're already listening to your favorite music. These everyday earbuds come with a variety of custom gel tips to help you get that perfect noise isolating fit. They won't shake loose from your ear while you're enjoying their 8 hours of continuous playtime. And Raycon is super flexible. If you're not sure you love them the same way I do, every purchase has an easy and free return guarantee. No wonder Raycon has over 50,000 5-star reviews. It's telling me to describe an artist that I like. Oh, I'm really into Lana Del Rey. Definitely. Damn. I don't know what that has to do with earbuds, though. Oh, because of music. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Lana makes music. that you can listen to. God, that makes so much more sense. Raycons come with 3 audio profiles to give you your ideal listening experience, like pure sound for perfect clarity to hear every note or every word on your favorite podcast, balanced sound for universal leveled sound for all-around performance, but I just keep mine set to bass sound to shake my skull, perfect for EDM and hip-hop. There's also an awareness mode, which lets you hear your surroundings, like when you're trying to do something in the kitchen, or if you have to pay attention to your pet. And you can even use your Raycons to take calls with the push of a button. And the best part is that Raycon is premium quality audio, which comes at like half the price of other premium brands. So you can fill your life with music without breaking the bank. And I am here to make that deal even sweeter for you today. All you gotta do is click that link in the description below. Go to buyraycon.com/skeptic to get 15% off of your Raycon order. Thank you for supporting my channel. Buy Raycon! From their descriptions, Foo Fighters sounded like they were an example of ball lightning, a somewhat rare phenomenon that has been recorded multiple times throughout history. Usually, ball lightning appears naturally during high-energy electrical storms, thunderstorms. Plasma seems to find a way to collect entirely on its own into a ball, and it dances and hovers around the air. On rare occasion, it has been recorded to even enter homes and structures. People sometimes swear that these balls of plasma behave as if they're intelligent, as if they're being either playful or somehow deliberate with their movements. Hence, why they are UFOs. Now, this kind of behavior should be impossible, as electricity will naturally find a ground to which it can arc, especially during an electrical storm when the Earth and atmosphere are literally exchanging electrons in an attempt to reach electrical equilibrium. There should not just be random balls of plasma dancing around in the air completely ignoring that process, unless we are missing something. I've never seen one, but every witness that I've interviewed has always said the same thing. When I asked if that ball of light looked like it could have been bait at the end of a fishing string that was being dragged along the sky to get your attention, they always say that's exactly how it behaved. Which leads me to think that those balls of light are somehow attached or quantum locked to something else in some way. Nobody in the mainstream scientific community has ever managed to build a working model of ball lightning on paper or in a laboratory. The phenomenon remains mostly a giant mystery in and of itself. But it is agreed that ball lightning is a real thing that has happened and will happen again. Most ball lightning seems to not be intelligent though. The first story I ever heard said that they were following power lines. And people have always said that UFOs follow the grid lines of our magnetic field in the sky as if they're stuck to the sheets of the ionosphere. And as stupid as that sounds, that's possible because our magnetic field really is a mesh grid. The toroidal field around the Earth is shaped like an interwoven basket, as if it's a spider web. And many have theorized for a long time that these UFOs seem to follow that natural grid pattern, which would explain why UFOs often make 90-degree turns at speed. What makes the Foo Fighters unique, however, is that there is no other time in history that ball lightning has been recorded with such frequency in such a localized display. It's a statistical anomaly, meaning that something very special and unique was happening in the 1940s that never happened before that and has never happened again since. So all I have to do is figure out what that one thing is, and we answer not only what the Foo Fighters were, but what ball lightning is in general. Yes, I am that smart. Maybe they aren't aliens or angels. I think that it's impossible to deny that the Foo Fighters are somehow correlated to World War II and airplane technology. Clearly, something was going on in the 1940s that was causing this phenomenon to occur semi-regularly around aircraft over Europe. The most puzzling part of the ball lightning mystery is how... Yeah, that's it. How? Like, how is the electricity forming mid-air? How is the electricity not arcing to a ground? That should be impossible, right? The answer is ball lightning forms around a monopole. All right? It has a monopole. Thank you and good night. Okay, that doesn't really answer the problem. It just creates a new problem. How in the is it forming a monopole? This became a chicken and the egg thing for me because I couldn't decide if the monopole appears in the atmosphere first and then the electricity forms around that, or if the electricity was collecting on its own and then that very act was necessitating the creation or the invitation of a monopole, or is it just simply there's a piece of metal floating in the air around which the electricity begins to form? Dramatic pause. The microwave is one of the most important individual technologies to have been developed in the modern era. We all know how useful it is for cooking alone. It's the safest, fastest, cleanest way to heat our food and make it healthy to eat. Microwaves are also integral for communication. We can use it for basic radio conversations, but microwaves are still used today to bounce signals off of satellites in orbit to distant locations. But in the 1940s, the most common and important use for microwaves was invented radar. Invisible light is transmitted from the radar source, and a dish reads what light is reflected back from the radar source, telling the operator how many objects are flying in the air or are floating on the ocean. When we look back, people will say the champion of World War II was the Jeep or the jet engine or the nuke or the tank, but really between the microwave and advancements in radio communication, World War II was the war of invisible light. Suddenly, both Axis and Allied nations had a new variety of tricks to use against each other. Radar was the real champion of World War II because it allowed for more accurate aerial night operations for bomber groups, as well as earlier warnings for incoming attacks, allowing for faster responses in defense to air attacks. But early magnetrons were crude, and they were just pumping raw electricity through these things, hoping to get some sort of basic information about any other air traffic, its distance, its direction, and speed. We take for granted today that radar equipment is reliably purpose-built, but the first radars were just microwaves that could see a little bit. They didn't initially have the ability to give you much information about what they were seeing. It wouldn't be until the later half of World War II when an Australian woman managed to tune the first radar system to be able to tell the difference between different kinds of air traffic, such as a Japanese bomber versus a commercial flight. But that was the art of radar, not the heart of its function. See, this was before the invention of the microwave oven. These engineers didn't fully appreciate the capabilities of the technology with which they were playing. Nobody considered that pumping all these microwaves into the air could have an effect on the atmosphere, or on anything at which they pointed their magical radar device. Have you ever seen what happens to a metal fork when you leave it in the microwave oven? Or even just some tinfoil? It does this. Microwaves plus metal equals plasma. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a Foo Fighter. Do not try this at home, kids. But if you did, you'd have a Foo Fighter in your home. But don't do it. So a fleet of German fighters 100 kilometers away is not going to feel the effects of radar coming off of an American flying fortress? But what if a fleck of metal spits out of the exhaust of an American Mustang fighter escort at the front of a fleet of bombers, and that fleck of metal is hit by the collective radar coming off of several bombers in that fleet at extremely close range? research? Well, I think that that fleck of metal might light up with plasma, and that plasma would have no ground to which it can go. It will be stuck on that metal. So I propose that that metal is being forced to become monopolar in that process. And now that it is a monopole, instead of operating within relation to Earth's gravity and the Earth's electromagnetic field, it's going to work in conjunction with the source of the radar. It will now be in quantum lock with an airplane. Quantum lock is when two isolated magnets are bound to each other's magnetic fields, yet are isolated from each other with some distance. This is an effect of electromagnetism and requires specific criteria to create these circumstances. But magnets are some crazy shit, and I promise that you guys don't even know the half of it. So now that the Foo Fighter is magnetically aligned with the radar and not with the atmosphere, this ball of plasma would want to follow along and dance between the aircraft, as it's the aircraft that are forming the Foo Fighter's very existence. So they lock onto their source, the monopolar fleck of metal being propelled by the large microwave field that's formed around the fleet. I mean, please think about this for one goddamn second. Why are airports and military facilities the most common places we see UFOs? Because there's cajillions of radar dishes there. My favorite part, though, is the shape of a microwave. Yeah, they're literal waves, but I mean, like, what direction does a microwave take after it's ejected out of the magnetron? After the electricity passes through the spinning magnet, it first goes straight up and then makes a giant flowing figure 8 shape, kind of like wings. And then from there, it goes up a little bit further and then starts to spin around in a little ring, like a halo. So I guess you could say, in a way, the Foo Fighters really were angels. That's pretty cute. When you think about it, you can almost see the modern microwave as the angel of destruction. Now, because of radar, a jet that's over the horizon can send a missile to take out your jet before you even know that it's there. The full microwave outline here, it's always been a little bit clunky to me, you know? We can shorthand this and make it a little bit tighter. What do you say? First, if we just cut the halo in half and just make it a letter P, it's way faster to draw. And then instead of drawing a full figure 8, you can just sketch in a quick letter X right in the middle. And there you go. World War II was caused by that right there. That's the thing that started the war, guys. There's your culprit. And one of these days, we're gonna figure out who this is, god damn it. There are different kinds of magnetrons, but the function is basically the same. Electricity is sent through a rounded, rotating magnet, and as the electrons are sent across the magnet platform in the center, transferring across to the outer edge of the disk, this process changes the properties of the electrons. Charging the magnet like this causes it to create radiation that lets off light. That radiation that's letting off light is the angel that's sticking out the end of the magnetron. I really hate videos that try to argue that the Germans were communicating with aliens or communicating with interdimensional beings or some shit to advance their technology during the 1930s and 40s. The German elite were really into the occult and worship to the black hole sun, but everyone did back then. Aleister Crowley made all that shit super popular in the 30s. There were no aliens. There were no demons. He was not chosen by God. All of those theories are just another way that people in the conspiracy community try to secretly glorify Hitler. And I made fun of all of that at the end of my UFO 3-parter that I released back in 2018. But infamously, that nefarious symbol that the Germans used and they wore on their shoulder was ripped from Eastern spiritual beliefs that are still practiced and recognized today. You will still see this symbol on temples that often have focus on health and well-being. Why is that? I've argued that ancient humans have always had electricity, a very weak, low-yield electricity compared to the system that Tesla gave us today, but there are a lot of possibilities for what kinds of different applications they could have come up with if they were wielding this electricity for thousands of years. You wouldn't need an electric motor to spin the magnets necessarily. If you hand-cranked the magnetron with a gear system and passed that low-frequency electricity through it, you wouldn't be able to cook anything, sure, but you would be able to disinfect food or disinfect a wound, or you could sterilize surgery equipment. Imagine how ancient people could have used a microwave as a healing device or a power for longevity. We use microwaves in therapy today. The giants who used to rule the seas before the Greeks were called the people of Oculus. The Greeks called them the people of the eye. And historians are so dumb that they think that that means that they were cyclopses. Like, literally, they thought that the Greeks believed the seas were ruled by giant cyclopses. This is my f***ing competition, guys. Seriously, this is what I'm up against. Please send help. People of the eye means the people who see, as in the Watchers. These people were the last group of Watchers, or perhaps even continuing the Watchers' traditions in the Mediterranean Sea. There's an oral legend about Greeks who were rescued at sea by an advanced people who had ships that could navigate themselves. Ships that navigate themselves. Now that sounds like the craziest shit you've ever heard. I know, but I think that means that their ships had basic radar. What the f***? Why does this make sense? The very first modern magnetron was invented in Germany by a German. I think that those crazy conspiracy theorists are right, that they had some kind of technology just dropped in their lap in the 30s, but it wasn't by aliens. Someone here on Earth pulled that shit out of an archive. And I perhaps am the only man on Earth that has the authority to make an accusation like that, because I literally did that and proved the existence of garden machines. So I consider myself a bit of an expert on shit that was pulled out of archives. The more arms and segments that you add to a magnetron disc, the stronger the microwave can be. The microwave oven that I grew up with in the 1980s could melt steel, but with planned obsolescence, the magnetron in your oven today is probably a super simple one-piece magnet with 4 segments, enough to cook your sauerkraut sandwich. Now, I tried to warm you up to this idea in an earlier video, but the black hole sun symbol is designed like a magnetron. This is another ancient symbol depicting the destroyer. One of the reasons why you'll see so many angels floating in the sky when the destroyer gets here is because she'll be microwaving all of the particles above our head. You're really gonna hate this part, but if you compare the outer disk part of the magnet, which is called the anode, with the black hole sun symbol that was on the castle floor, and then you compare the center magnet, which is called a cathode, with the symbol that the Germans put on their shoulder, well, I think you can probably see what I'm trying to tell you here. That just so happens to make a magnetron. They were bragging that they were using microwaves as weapons, the same way that the ancient empires used to put swords or bows and arrows on their banner flag to boast about their military strength. Now, all of the diagrams and information that I got for the garden machines, I got from scans that were in archives in Switzerland. There are several archives like that, for example, the one under the Vatican, that are packed full of ancient knowledge that nobody knows what's down there. A very select few people actually know what kind of information is even available down there. I made a joke in an old UFO video that UFO technology is from the old world before the Great Flood, and that melting face scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark represented the Germans unlocking that ancient technology for UFOs. Well, that's not too far off from the truth. Sorry, I mean, that's not too far off from the story that I'm writing for my fictional movie. Likely, German scientists were experimenting with magnetrons and microwaves, and they had no idea what was gonna happen when they pumped that much electricity through a magnetron. And supposedly, there is an Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia. Perhaps it's even the Ark of the Covenant, the one from the Bible. The ancient word for pyramids translates to fire within. The fire within a pyramid was a ball of plasma that sat between the wings of the angels, the cherubim, that are on the top of the Ark of the Covenant. So if ancient people knew about microwaves, imagine if a magnetron was inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Imagine that that angel that's sitting on top of the Ark is that microwave. There doesn't necessarily need to be a magnetron in the Ark of the Covenant, but there has to be a large magnet, because the angel sitting on the throne is not described as a simple spark gap, it's described as a ball of plasma. So you would need perhaps a large rare earth magnet to hold that plasma down in that position. Otherwise, the spark gap might arc upwards, and it wouldn't create the desired effect. Plus, there was a rumor on the internet for the longest time that the Ethiopian guardian of the Ark, who was never allowed to leave its side, would usually live an extremely short lifetime. And everyone's theory was that there were radioactive materials in the box. But a large rare earth magnet would pull all of the iron out of your cells, creating a very similar effect to radiation. After 10 years of sitting next to a giant magnet as its keeper, that would pull the iron out of every single one of your cells. And the effects on your body would be nearly identical to radiation. It would just appear as if billions of particles had torn through your cell walls. Even just being near a rare earth magnet the size of my fist would pull the iron out of your eyeballs. You wouldn't be able to spend more than 2 or 3 minutes near that magnet before your eyes started to hurt. Guys, fucking magnets. I'm telling you. I know.